There have been plenty of times after shooting a roll of film where I've been really excited to get my results back, only to be disappointed by my own incompetence, especially when it comes to black and white. And there's also been times where I've been really lucky to get a few good shots and think, oh, I really like this one. I'm not really sure why I like it or what makes it good, but I know I like it. And so I think doing some image breakdowns is really helpful for me. That's what I want to do in this video, so I can be more consistent next time I go out to shoot a roll and see what makes them good, why do I like this one, and how can I keep improving and be more reproducible. Me and Angela recently took a quick trip back to the US, and we were able to get out one day and shoot a roll of HP5 and our Mamiya RB67. And to me, black and white film photography is like a whole different realm of photography in and of itself. It's a whole new learning curve because you don't have the luxury of shooting in color and then converting to black and white in post and being able to illuminate or deluminate certain color hues and make certain things stand out. So it can get really tricky really fast. And for this first image, we're gonna look at 3 of them. But for this first one, it's a really clean and simple look, which I'm really starting to like more. And I wanna incorporate this kind of style into more of my images. If there's too much going on in an image at one time, it just makes it really hard to identify the clear subject, and it's not as pleasing to the eye. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I took this photo on 35mm, and there's just too much going on here. There's all these cars on the edges. I think the people over here are fine, but what was supposed to be the main subject, this gas truck, it just kind of blends into the background, and it just ended up being too cluttered all around. This seemed counterintuitive in my mind at first. It seems like you would want to capture like everything you can in one frame, but I think that actually does more harm than good. It does better to do the opposite and just capture one main thing and simplify the rest of the frame around it. And I've discovered that you can do this very easily by not being afraid to use negative space and learning how to use negative space in an effective way. I first got this idea from a photo that I saw in a hotel bathroom. This thing was like 21:9 in aspect ratio, and it was hanging portrait right next to the mirror. But there was nothing at the top of the frame. So like the whole top was just this white sky. It wasn't even interesting with like cool clouds or anything like that. It was in black and white as well, so I guess that's why I'm remembering it. And at the bottom third, it might not even been the bottom third, maybe even like little fewer space than that, however you say that, littler, fewer space than that, there was these buffalo at the bottom, and they were the subject, and it just looked so cool, and it was just so pleasing to the eye. Very simple, but so effective. So using that negative space that I used here, I kept that in mind. So kind of taking that idea from this picture that I saw in a hotel bathroom of all things and applying it to my own work. And I really liked how it turned out. I want to start shooting like this more and more. Now, talking about editing, doing correction in post, I know there's some people that have certain feelings about editing film photos. I know some people think that you shouldn't edit film photos at all. You should just leave them how they are. But whether we're talking about editing film or editing digital, I think the goal is just to make your photos a little bit better. Besides that, I'm all for people just doing whatever they want with the pictures that they took. So I always like making my pictures just a little bit better if I can. It's actually fun for me to do things in post. And in this one in particular, after cleaning up my composition and adding a little bit of contrast, not too much because I like the dynamic range of film, I warmed them up and the color temperature just a little bit. Like I think I put it on 1 from this scan, and the color temperature can really affect the mood and the feeling behind a photo or an image a lot of times, and it can give just a little bit of color because obviously these are black and white, they're void of color, so you can add just that little bit of extra feeling just by playing around with the color temperature, whether you want it a little bit cooler, whether you want it a little bit warmer. So with this one and the rest of these in this set of HP5, I warmed them all up. I think it just gives it a little bit more of a vintage feel, and it goes worth saying that these were shot on a cloudy day, so that's both good and bad. As far as light goes, good because the light is soft and it's even, but bad because you don't have a broad range from highlights, midtones, and shadows. What we've been doing a lot lately is chasing light, even when there's not an interesting subject necessarily or interesting location. But anytime that you have layers of light, dark, like in this photo. I mean, this was taken in our living room in a corner, but we saw the cool light coming in and we just wanted to take some portraits just to see how they would come out. But anytime you have those layers of light, you're going to create more depth. You don't have that on a cloudy day, even though I like shooting black and white on cloudy days. I think it works really well, but that's one thing to keep in mind and to consider. So in post, I did some dodge and burn, just darkening places that needed to be darkened, lightening up places that needed that to happen. So just gives it a little bit more depth without taking away from the dynamic range, and probably the most fun to play around with and probably the most effective at the same time. The last thing I played with in the edit was whether or not to remove these power lines. I didn't think they added anything to the overall image, so I removed them. I liked it, so I kept it. I also removed these other cars over here. Same thing, they just kind of took away from the attention of the subject. I moved them. I liked it better because one thing I'm starting to take into consideration when going out to shoot, other than the basic things like lighting, subject, composition, location, is overall scene. And what I mean by that is, if we take a look at this picture here, I don't regret taking it or anything. It's this cool vintage Mercedes, but after looking at it, I was like, man, something's throwing me off and I don't know what it is. Well, what it is there's this modern car in the background on the other side of the street. So if you were trying to take like a screen grab from like a period piece in like a film, you would never have the mix of those two things. You would never have this vintage car from a certain time period and a modern car right next to each other in the same image. If I remember right, I think behind me was just like a wall or a building, so I should have gone to the other side of the car and took the picture from that side. It wouldn't have had at least this distraction of this modern vintage mix together. So just taking into consideration the overall scene of a photo, that's what I really liked about this one. We have the old hotel, motel, whatever it is, and you have the older model truck. That makes for a good overall scene in the image. I also thought that the best choice for this specific photo was to take it straight on. That doesn't work all the time. It did work for this one and I liked it. But that kind of leads me to my next point, trying to identify specific angles and corners to create some depth in the image. Now, I can't take credit for actually taking this photo. This was the work of the true photographer among us, Angela, and she took this at a really good angle here and created some natural depth and had some differences between highlights and shadows here. One of the first hacks that I ever learned in cinematography when I first started making videos is if you film yourself up against a flat wall, the image is going to come out flat. But even if you turn your camera to a 45-degree angle and shoot into the corner of a room, it creates more depth without even considering, lens choice, lighting, all those other things that create depth as well. Just by doing one simple thing of turning your body one way or the other can make an image look that much better. We can actually kind of compare this one to another shot that Angela also took in color on 35mm. This one was obviously shot straight on, and I don't think I would have liked it as much in black and white because in color, this is going to sound really obvious, but our eye is more drawn to color, and color creates separation and depth when we look at it. So when we're shooting black and white, a lot of times I kind of have to retrain my brain to think in black and white and see things in dark and light rather than what color pops out to me, because you're not going to have that in the end result. So for me, this one really worked in color and it wouldn't have worked in black and white so much. And the last thing that I want to talk about is mixing up shot selection between wide, medium, and tight shots. One thing that can be really easy for me to do if I'm not careful is have 10 shots on a roll, medium format, and they all look the exact same except for just the subject changing. I think this first one that we looked at was kind of a wide shot. The next one, I'm going to call it medium. It was kind of wide too, but just for the sake of this, we'll call it a medium shot. And then this last one was a tight shot. I thought that I wildly underexposed this one when I got back home and thought about it, because I had taken a wider shot of this Oldsmobile right next to another car. I got closer, I didn't meter the light again and just went ahead and took it anyway, and I was like, Oh man, I think I forgot to expose correctly, but no, it came out all good. And this was one of me and Angela's favorites, just because we got a little bit more detail in this one. Again, you don't have to capture everything all in one frame. People know this is a car. You can get those detail shots and mix up your shot selection, and just makes for just a better overall set of photos rather than just thinking about one image at a time, and for them not to just all look the same. Well, the weather, I think, is finally starting to warm up, so I can't wait to go out and shoot some more. These are just some observations that I made that I want to apply next time that we go out and shoot, but I think I'm going to do more color next time because I do like color. I'm ready to get back to it again.